There's an election coming up on May 5th in Malaysia, and for the first time, the ruling party in power since independence in 1957 has a chance of losing. To tell us why, we have Sudhir Thomas Vadaketh on Skype. A Singaporean citizen, Vadaketh is a contributor for the Economist Group and author of the book Floating on a Malayan Breeze, Travels in Malaysia and Singapore. It describes a trip he took to understand his Malaysian roots. Welcome to LinkAsia, Sudhir.
Thank you.
Now, all indications are that this election will be close and that the ruling National Front coalition may even lose. What's been going on?
Well, I like to say that Malaysia is undergoing a quiet socio-political revolution. This has been going on for the past 10, 15 years at least. And at the crux of it is two things. Malaysians are increasingly fed up of the large-scale affirmative action program in the country, the Bumiputra system, that essentially gives preferences to the majority Malay Muslim community. So the Malay Muslims make up about 60% of the population, and the other 40% largely Chinese and Indians. And so, increasing resentment about the system, which has led to ethnic tensions in the country, amongst other things. And alongside that, on a sort of related note, Malaysians also increasingly fed up with the sort of large-scale corruption that we've seen in the country over the years. So, a lot of cases of cronyism, nepotism, graft involved with sort of awarding of public tenders in the country.
Interesting. Well, the ruling National Front Party has much of the tightly controlled mainstream media on its side. But as you know, the internet and social media have grown dramatically in Malaysia. What do you think is social media's role?
It's having a tremendous impact on the country. I think one of the main reasons we're seeing this dramatic change in the country is because of the role of the internet and social media in particular. A few interesting changes since the last election. I think in 2008 we saw the blogosphere playing a very important role, Facebook also very important. But this election we're actually seeing Twitter, playing a very important role. All the major politicians have Twitter accounts. Malaysians are communicating a lot on Twitter. And I think it's partly because Malaysia has very high penetration of mobile internet usage, so it's actually a very mature social media market right now in terms of electoral politics.
Now, finally, you give the opposition at most a 25% chance of winning the election. Why so low?
I think there are some things that hold the opposition back. There are sort of fundamental ideological differences between some of the parties within the opposition coalition. So, for example, you've got an Islamic party, PAS, and you've got a Chinese majority party, DAP, and you get the feeling that they can never really see eye to eye on a number of issues, including, for instance, the implementation of hudud law, Islamic law in Malaysia, should the opposition come into power. I think so there are some fundamental fractures within the opposition. I think many Malaysians want change, but they are still slightly skeptical of the opposition. Now, on the other side, like I mentioned earlier, the Prime Minister has actually done a lot in terms of pre-election spending and promises. And you could argue that actually, in terms of bread and butter issues, he's put the ruling party in a much better position than it was 5 years ago. So some skepticism about the opposition, coupled with, Najib actually doing some good for the ruling coalition, and I think that's why I probably give it a 1 in 4 or maybe even 1 in 3 chance of an opposition victory. So I think most probably the ruling coalition will hold on to power. But as you said, for the first time in Malaysia's history, there's a real chance that the opposition might win.
Very interesting times. Thank you for your insight, Sudhir.
Thank you.
Sudhir Thomas Vadaketh is a writer and journalist. He spoke to us from Singapore. You can find out more about him on our experts page. An 8-story building collapsed in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. At least 100 people died. It happened during rush hour on Wednesday. The building housed a garment factory, bank, and other businesses. This survivor says she heard a strange sound at about 9:30 and the building started to fall. She escaped down a stairwell, then jumped down. She was pulled out. Rescuers used bolts of cloth from the garment factory to help people get out. Local media said large cracks were seen in the building the day before the collapse, but a worker says the garment factory's owners told him not to worry. Bangladesh has one of the largest garment industries in the world, providing clothes to retailers globally. Last November, a fire at one clothing factory killed 110 people. Poor safety conditions and poor construction materials were blamed.
Now on U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.